Moving on to the next topic, the search for convergence. So, what are we trying to converge here? We are trying to bring a convergence between the Mahabharat as an epic and Mahabharat as a historical event that happened. So, we are trying to see if these two things actually converge somewhere or not. So, we'll be doing this by looking at some of the archaeological evidence as well as certain practices. So, we'll be doing this under two headings. First one, when we talk about archaeological evidence related to the Mahabharat, we'll focus on sites that have been mentioned in Mahabharat text and whether or not there have been any archaeological finds corresponding to these sites. Then we'll be delving into certain practices, especially relating to marriage, mentioned in Mahabharat, and we'll try and see whether it might have been found in the real world of that time or not. So, if we are looking into archaeological evidence, we have to take into account the excavations carried out by a famous Indian archaeologist known as B.B. Lal in the 1950s and 60s. Okay, so he carried out excavation in a village called Hastinapur. Okay, so this Hastinapur was located in the upper region of Uttar Pradesh. Okay, so he wanted to see whether this is the very same Hastinapur which was the capital of Kuru kingdom, or the names are just coincidence. So, what did B.B. Lal's excavations reveal? Okay, so while carrying out excavations within this Hastinapur village, he found that there were 5 occupational levels. Now, what are these occupational levels? We are not talking about occupation of people living here, rather, it is the 5 strata or layers occupied by people living in ancient time, where each layer or strata represents one time period. If you remember your chapter 1 and we were talking about stratigraphy, this is what it means. So B.B. Lal followed the rules of stratigraphy, and he said that while carrying out excavations, he found 5 stratas, okay, representing 5 different cultural periods. Now, the lowest strata will represent the oldest period, and the uppermost strata will represent the latest period in history. So, of these 5 layers of excavation that was carried out in Hastinapur village, the one the second layer and the third layer are of importance to us for those who want to understand about Mahabharat, okay, from an archaeological point of view. So the second strata, okay, it belongs to a time period of 12th century BCE to 7th century BCE. This is purely the Vedic age. Now, if you remember the features of Vedic age, it had many features of a rural society. It was not urban in its outlook. So, बहुत सारा rural features होगा. The houses will not be well planned. The bricks will not be of high quality. Okay, so what did he observe? It is written here, kindly look into it. Okay, he says no definite plans of house were obtained, so lack of planning of houses, just like we have in Mohenjo-daro, वैसा कुछ भी नहीं था. Okay, but walls of mud and mud bricks were seen. So obviously walls are used for demarcating a territory, whether it's your house or land. So that was witnessed during this time. That means people knew about their property, but they were protecting their own property. Then houses had reed walls plastered with mud. This is still seen in rural areas, how houses have walls जिसको मड से लीपते या पोतते हैं हम लोग कहते हैं ना. सो इट वॉज प्रेजेंट इन द सेकेंड लेयर फाउंड इन द एक्सकवेशंस ऑफ हस्तिनापुर. ठीक है. सो इट डिनोट्स अ culture that lived there or people that lived there. They belong to the Vedic age. Then you have a third level or strata. This is much more refined, okay, and this was the era of Mahajanpads. If you remember, the second phase of urbanization in the Indian subcontinent. So here you will see marked improvement in housing technology and drainage system too. So it is mentioned in your books how the houses were built of mud bricks as well as burnt bricks. So burnt bricks क्या होता है? It is more lasting. In fact इतना lasting होता है, if you go to Kumrar or these historical places, you will still find evidence of Ashokan Palace. Okay, उसका groundwork which was built by mud bricks, and these bricks, if you look at them, they are so well preserved, these burnt bricks, that you can actually unearth them and use them as normal bricks too. Okay, though their historical value is priceless, no doubt about it, but I'm just telling you कि उसका कितना वो everlasting होता है. Then for drainage purpose, take out the refuse or dirty water. They had drainage system, brick drains and soakage jars, and they had presence of ring wells too. So now we have got houses which were pretty much urban in outlook, okay, the planning or the structure, but there were no palaces as mentioned in the great epic. Okay, the way they were describing the mansions and the grand palaces uh, where the royal family resided, वैसा कुछ नहीं मिला. So here is where an opposite view exists, which says some historians state that it might be possible that either this entire narrative of palaces was added much later, okay, during the Mauryan era or during the Gupta era, you can say, because you do find evidence of palace during that time, or it is simply that the author took the liberty to grant these residences his own grand vision. ठीक है, तो वो it's you can either say that the palaces were constructed much later, or it was merely a flight of poetic fantasy of the author. Now we'll talk about the practices, especially regarding marriages, which are seen within Mahabharata, whether or not these practices were very much prevalent in the society of that time period. Agar tha, तो we can say that yes, this story might have happened. Okay, it will give a boost to our theory. It will supply us with additional information to back it up. Okay, so here's the story. The story is about Draupadi's marriage to the Pandava, and it is an instance of polyandry. If you remember clearly, she was the common wife of all the 5 Pandavas. And how did this situation arise that she had to become a common wife and all? It is mentioned in source 16 of your book. Kindly go through it. So what do historians make out of that situation? Okay, this polyandry marriage. Okay, some historians say that polyandry might have been prevalent during that time, especially amongst ruling elites. Okay, but they do become cautious here because they say that the fact that so many explanations have been provided for this practice within the Mahabharata itself, okay, some are saying that just read the source 16, okay, there are few explanations given there that why Draupadi ended up marrying the 5 Pandavas. Just because there are so many explanations, it suggests that the Brahmanical tradition later on, okay, as time passed, they might have discontinued or not liked this practice of polyandry. Okay, so the times might have changed and polyandry continued to become obsolete or extinct from Brahmanical perspective. Okay, it was not acceptable by Brahmins later on. Why do historians feel so? Because the Brahmins gave in a lot of effort to explain why Draupadi had to do it. अगर normal सा बात होता, just think about it, if it's just an everyday practice, everybody is doing it, you don't need to provide extra explanation regarding it. ठीक है, it's just a norm, it's just a fact, you just do it as it is done without giving any reasons or explanations. But the fact that they gave so many reasons for it means they were trying to justify that act, which was not favorable later on in later successive generations. Then some other historians state that uh, polyandry was and is prevalent in the Himalayan region. Okay. Now, where is the Kuru kingdom situated? It is almost situated in the upper reaches of Uttar Pradesh, that is nearer to Himalayas. So it is very much possible that they might have practiced this, but it was not approved by Brahmins. Just like if you remember regarding rules of marriage, there were 8 rules of marriage, 4 which were acceptable by Brahmins, and the last 4 which they deemed to be not acceptable by them, but they acknowledged that it existed. Same way यहाँ भी हो सकता है, they acknowledged that polyandry was an exceptional situation that occurred during that time. But just because it was exceptional, it was out of a crisis like situation, that does not mean that we accept it. Now, what is the view to counter it? Again, you have some historians stating that the author might have taken creative liberty to establish that the central characters of Mahabharata story were different, and this is how he wanted to portray them, different from other normal human beings. Okay, this might be an opposite view. Mahabharata, a dynamic text. Okay, just because the original Mahabharata was written down in 1000 years, okay, it was composed in 1000 years, it doesn't mean that the story ended there. Okay, now the fact that it is a dynamic text means that the same epic, it was written in various other languages. We have already seen that. And we also saw that when the dominant Brahmanical notion or tradition, they interacted with a local tradition, what happened? Either through a consensus they were able to incorporate some of the ideas of local tradition into Mahabharata, or it is most likely then some of these ideas were discarded too, which might have created a conflict. Okay, then the central story of Mahabharata was retold in different ways. This is because Mahabharata is such a rich repository of themes and characters in it. The theme is so varied, the characters are so diverse, that there is always a scope for someone interpreting it in their own way. This process has been so ongoing that till now you have famous writers, you have Devdutt Patnaik or Amish Tripathi, who are rewriting Mahabharata from a perspective of a particular character, and these books are becoming bestsellers. So in the same way, Mahabharata was even retold in the ancient and medieval times too. It never stopped. Okay, ongoing process, chalta raha, abhi bhi chalta hai. Then each character and the theme, they provide a basis, okay, for artists or authors to draw inspiration from. For example, the various sculptures and paintings have Mahabharata's character as their theme. So one of my favorite one is, if you look into it, if you know about the paint artist Raja Ravi Varman, so his painting of King Shantanu and his consort Queen Satyavati, so these are depicted very nicely. in his paintings. Then it also provides a basis for performing arts. ठीक है, plays, dance and of other kinds of narration. Dance किस form में? If you remember, Mahabharat also has Krishna playing a very important role. और कृष्णा से कौन सा related dance is very famous and it is performed every now and then, either in Mathura or somewhere else. It's Ras Leela. So all these things show how dynamic Mahabharat as a text is, never was. Okay, so this is it for today. We have done our chapter.